Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Prairie Podcast. My name is Andrew Weeb once again, and it's a pleasure to have you with us here today because we've got a very special episode. It's a unique episode. You're going to be hearing a bit from some of our distinguished alumni. We just had a wonderful service with them, and I'm happy we could get them on here, interview them, and ask them a couple questions about their lives and the work that God has done in their lives over many years or even just a couple. So, shortly, you'll be hearing from Scott Isaac, the recipient of the Early Career Excellence Award. And then you'll also hear a bit from Fred Whaples, the recipient of the Integration of Christian Faith and Professional Work. There's some excellent folks, and I'm excited that we had them on here, and I hope you enjoy their stories. So, make sure you stay tuned for future podcast episodes and other special features just like this. So, thank you so much for joining us, and on to the interviews.
Yeah, my name is Scott Isaac.
My name is Fred Whaples,
I came to Prairie in the fall of 2009 and finished in 2013.
graduate of 1992 with my bachelor's and 1995 with my master's.
I came to do the youth ministry program and had came from Manitoba, which realized more and more there's not a whole lot of Manitoba students actually that come out this way. But I'd heard about Prairie and knew who the had been told that the youth professor at the time was one of the best in the country. And so continued to find out a little bit more about the school, and that's what brought us out here.
When I came to Prairie in 1988, I came because I believed I was being obedient to God. I had sent a pastor a list of colleges to pray with me, someone who I trusted immensely. And the pastor called me back. There were 32 colleges on the list. And I said, would you just pray over the list that I make the right decision? And he calls me, says, number 14, it's Prairie, at that time, Bible College. And he said, but you need to know you're going to be involved in an accident that will involve impact, fire, and explosion, but God will spare you and use your life to impact others forever. And so I came here on October 28th, 1989. We were coming back from ministry in Irma, Alberta, Canada. It's a small town on the border of Saskatchewan. We're on a dirt road coming home at about 10 in the morning, and a man ran a stop sign going about 65 miles an hour. He was intoxicated and hit us head on. We flipped 3 times, burst into flames, and the van that we were in, that the school let us use, had exploded within 3.5 minutes of impact. I woke up in the vehicle. I was in the passenger seat of the front, and I woke up pinned to the vehicle after it had rolled. Literally, the engine was burning in my lap. Of course, being the man of God and faith and power that I am here at Prairie, I passed out. God intervened. All I know is I woke up at some point. They didn't know I was in the vehicle. The vehicle was demolished. And they were helping another student who had gone through the side window, and she was laying in the field. Her name is Krista. She's now a missionary to children with Kids at Heart. But when they got her to the hospital, she had a shattered backbone, broken in multiple places. I put her on a metal bed, took an x-ray a few weeks later, inconclusive. The third x-ray, about 5 weeks after the impact, showed a perfect backbone, no damage. And so right there, we knew God was in it. So we had impact from explosions. As a matter of fact, the RCMP report hanging on my wall at home says the young man in the passenger side should have been killed by the impact alone, much less the fire and explosion that followed. The exact 3 words my pastor gave me almost 2 years earlier. Got me to the Edmonton University Hospital, and I had a shattered jawbone on the right side and broken in 7 places on the left side. Now, I don't know what the difference between shattered and 7 places are, but I would say they were in bad shape. I looked down at the accident, and my jawbone was on the middle of my chest. They don't know how I got out. I would love to have seen the very large angels that yanked me out of there, but I do remember vividly waking up and being upside down and the engine burning in my lap. So I have no doubt that angels intervened. So I came here because God led me here, and God verified the story that I was in the right place. Prairie was the best experience of my life up to that point. Lots of amazing things, and I had the privilege of starting the first youth ministry of the old tabernacle that was here on campus. They never did anything for high school students or junior high students, even though we had a residential high school. And so I started youth ministry, and we ran about 300 teenagers from the town and from Prairie. So coming here was just an amazing experience. Lots of God moments, God sightings, and that's the long version of why I came.
Yeah, so since my time at Prairie, which maybe feels like a while ago, but also not that long ago because we left in 2013. I've been in the same spot. We in that final year of college here started looking to see where we're going to end up and where we're going to go for ministry position. Was looking at youth pastor positions and started some interviews. Actually, I guess just really one interview. That's the church where we ended up. So we moved back to Manitoba. That was we were from Manitoba. We kind of wanted to be back with family there again, and the church in Manitoba was part of the Mennonite Brethren denomination, which we had begun to get to know in our time out here, and started as a youth pastor at Elm Creek MB Church in the March of 2013. And I had always had in my mind that this is the thing I'm going to do. Once we started into that, and I really had no other plans. This is what we're it's what called to do, and I want to do this for. I'll do this my entire career, and if it can be at this church, I was fully on board with that. So partway through that, just with the staff change, there was an opportunity for a lead pastor position, to which I said, "No, I don't need to do that. I don't want to do that. I know what I'm called to do, and it's youth ministry." And God kind of stirred that up for me. I really was surprised just from some input from other people that spoke into the think saying like, yeah, no, I think you would do well in a lead pastor position. And so it kind of gave some pause and thought about it, but between Julie and I, it just like, no, I don't think we need to do that shift. And so from that point on, we hired someone else as a lead pastor, and with this thought in the back of my mind that, okay, maybe one day I could be in a different pastoral role, and still carried on with the student ministry. And so when that came available the next time, I knew that, okay, I think this time it is going to be a yes to this role. And so after 10 and a half years in the youth ministry program there as the youth pastor in Elm Creek, I resigned from that position and took the role of the lead pastor position in that in our church in Elm Creek. It's called Crossway now. Partway through our time there, we changed the name from Elm Creek MB Church to Crossway Elm Creek, and I've been in that lead pastor role for 2 years now.
Upon leaving Prairie, I finished my second master's in education. And after leaving Prairie, I don't want to say life began because life truly was amazing here. I entered the ministry in St. Louis and also did some teaching at a public high school. The high school then needed an interim principal. Our principal had committed suicide. And so I stepped into the role at a very young age. At 23 years old, I was the principal of a 1,400 student high school, public, and stayed in that position for another 4 years. Well, stayed in the principal position for 2 years, 4 years total teaching. And the Methodist Church romanced me into a full-time position in Florida. And so I lived in Florida for 5 years and then moved to North Carolina at the request of the bishop in the Methodist Church. And that's where we've been for 22 years. My last ministry assignment, official ministry assignment, was planting a church. And one of the greatest accomplishments of that, and I really got to give a lot of credit to somebody like a professor that used to be here named Mr. Tatlock. Larry was the most passionate God presenter I'd ever met. And he was one that ignited me, even for church planting or growing youth ministry. And we started with one other family. It was us, a husband and wife, and their two teenagers, and our kids. And 3 years later, we're running about 300, and not one was from another church. Every one of them were new converts. Every one of them had been introduced to God for the first time. And we baptized, and we had 14 of them going to get their bachelor's or master's in ministry. And I now have 9 chaplains or full-time pastors serving from that congregation in the world today. And for 3 years to have 9 pastors produced, I may have burnt out, but God made sure that the light kept going.
Yeah, the things I've been learning recently. That's not an easy question. I feel like I get to ask that to people often enough if we invite people up to share part of their testimony or story or just ministries and what's going on. And it's an easy one, like, what's God teaching you now? And to answer it, for myself, I don't know that it's a real flashy big thing that I feel like God's teaching me at this point. There's a part of it is faithfulness, is being faithful in the call that God has put on my life to minister, to be in pastoral roles. That would be part of it for sure. Uh, there's part of it in difficulty, realizing that there's always going to be difficulty in church ministry, and sometimes are lighter, and other times are heavier. And in those heavier times, I think I've been learning as well to I want to solve things myself, and realize that a lot of a lot of success really only comes when we lean on God even more. So in some of those difficult times, I think I've been getting better at leaning into spiritual disciplines and just pleading with God on things. And there's parts where it's like, hey, this is my part to do now, but God's doing so much more behind the scenes. So getting to see Him do that is exciting. Whether that's in relationships that have been challenging or people that He brings alongside to minister with, it's really exciting to see those things happen. And I just give God the credit for it, and need to be reminded that, like, okay, let's lean into pursuing God, knowing that He's going to take care of some of these things as well. Uh, I think I've been learning as well, just the people are in different spots in their spiritual journey along the way. Age does not equal spiritual maturity. You can have some young people that are just incredibly mature, and some older people where we just assume would be mature that might be still learning a lot as well. Uh, but yeah, probably that faithfulness, persistence in the spiritual disciplines would probably really sum up a lot of the things I'm hoping to learn, or kind of learning along the way right now. It seems like things don't come as big flashes of learning anymore. It's kind of these like slow little incremental things that get put into it. I don't know that I'm in any of those rapid areas of growth right now. So incremental things.
God constantly teaches us. He is the most long suffering um, belief system out there. As a history teacher, I present all religions. And that was another class that Larry Tatlock taught here. He taught world religions and apologetics. And of all of the faiths, God is probably the most gentle, kind. We know He's a judge, but it's a judge with a passion and a heart and a soul and a belief in you, wanting the best for you, not the punishment because you did something wrong. And so, what I've been learning from God is that there's nowhere I can run out of His grace. There's nowhere I can expire the term and the limits to His love. And so I'm just grateful that as I get older, you would think that you get better at this faith, but the reality is I'm human. I tend to always gravitate to how I was born, fallen, and yet God's grace is constantly there. God's love is constantly arms embraced. He is constantly the one coming alongside of us and saying, "Hey, let me go with you." My favorite verse is, "Though a righteous man falls, he gets up." And it's this way of God teaching me that no matter how many times I fail, no matter how many times I fall, no matter how many times I make a decision in the selfish flesh, as long as I get up one more time and I make that decision, He considers me righteous.
Yeah, I feel like I think, I truly believe, I'm convinced that God is calling me to be a pastor. I know that He's given me gifts to be able to do things within that role of being a pastor. And I when I think of a local context, like where I am a pastor in Elm Creek, I don't have a 5-year plan, a vision to say this is the thing we're going towards as a church. But what I am convinced of is the everyday being present for our church. So that's kind of what I see going forward. Is I want to serve our church. I want to serve our community as a pastor, as an ambassador for Christ in our community. And I'm okay if that takes the next 2 to 3 decades for whatever God wants to accomplish through me in that. I'm okay if it takes time. I'm okay if it's slow. I'm okay if it requires difficulty, and I'm okay if it takes um, persistence and faithfulness. But I want to be there to minister in our community, to lead us in worship with others that are leading as well, week in, week after week after week, as we gather for worship. I want to be present for the joys and the difficulties of life, of celebrating births and marriages, and walking alongside our church as they mourn and go through difficulty or funerals. I want to be able to serve our community in that way. And my prayer is that those in our midst that don't yet know Jesus will come to know Him, and we get to be part of that somehow. And I'm okay if it doesn't happen this month or this week, and I hope it does. but I'm okay if it takes time, and God wants to use me, and in the time that it takes for Him to use me.
Hearing God's voice is always one of the greatest challenges, but also one of the greatest moments of our lives. When we hear that voice, and it's distinct for all of us, it's how all of us hear Him. For me, I can be sitting in a church service or in a lecture or in a class or in somewhere, and literally I get goosebumps. And it's not, I know some people get them because it's cold in a building. I don't. I'm always warm. I don't really feel the cold. But I do get them when I'm in a moment, and all of a sudden, that's a God moment. That's a God sighting. God is right here, right now. And you just know it. And what is God calling to me? It sounds very basic, but He's calling me to the Shema. In the Old Testament, the Shema was to love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, and strength, and to love your neighbor as yourself. Years ago, Harvard University put out a study where they took a paragraph and it explained that it doesn't matter in what order the letters are in a word. If the first letter and the last letter are in the right shape, you and I can read an entire novel of incorrect words, as long as the first and last letter are in the right place. And then they go in, and so they show this jumbled up paragraph, and you can't read it. You have everybody in the audience read it, and nobody understands it. But then they show another graphic where the first and last letter are in the right place, but the words are all still messed up. So dictionary, the D and the Y are in the right place, but the dictionary are all jumbled. What is amazing is our brains really do read based on the first and last letters. It's astounding. Look it up on the internet. It's an amazing research. So here's the thing. To love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, and strength, and love your neighbors yourself. As basic as this sounds, the thing that God is calling me to and teaching me and constantly giving me more insights and forcing me to spend more time thinking about is the first and last letters of our faith. If I could just love God and love others, my life can be a total mess. And He'll make sense of it all, and so will they. And so God's calling me to just continue to love Him and love others.
I think the biggest encouragement for current Prairie students I would have is probably centered around the need. Like you're needed. There's a world of church. There's a world of pastoral positions that are empty. You are so needed. Your gifts and abilities, the way that God has uniquely equipped you, is so needed in our midst, in our churches, in vocational roles. But even so, I don't think it's more so, but also in roles of serving alongside those who might be pastors and paid staff. That our churches need Prairie students who are growing, using this space and time of growing and maturity to come back into these communities and churches and serve, because the world needs Jesus. Jesus chooses to use the local church more often than not to make Himself known, and we need people in these churches who can serve, both vocationally as well as volunteering. So you are needed. That's I think that's the biggest thing.
Coming back to Prairie as an alumni, not sure about the distinguished part, but coming back as an alumni is always a great honor. It brings back memories that are so sacred and so igniting to my spirit now. As we go through life, we get caught up in the everyday mundane, or we get caught up in just life. And sometimes God gets squeezed out of the very thing that He gives us, because the thief comes to steal, kill, and destroy, but God has come to give life and more abundant. And so the more abundant our life is, the more we should be drawn to God, because it's His doing. When we have an abundant, free life, it's not because we've done anything to deserve it. It's that God is really with us at that moment. It's when our joy is stolen. It's when we're discouraged or distressed. It's when we're making a decision that's causing us angst. Those are the moments we know the thief's nearby. Those are the times that we just know. So if you're in a place in life where your life is good, and you're thankful and you're grateful, and just things are going relatively smooth right now, you need to know that that's the very moment you need to know that God's presence is the most dear and close to you at that time, because that's where that source of life comes from. I would tell you, Prairie students, keep drawing near to God and He will draw near to you. Only one life, it'll soon be past. Only what's done for Christ will last. You want a true legacy? You want to live eternally? Daily invest in leaving people better than you find them. And that would be my challenge.